What is going on, Governors? Jisco here, and today we're going to talk all about Scipio, bringing you a commander guide. We're going to tell you exactly how you can smash your enemies on the battlefield with this commander, and if you're into that, you should totally like and subscribe. We're going to bring you commander guides regularly, and the makers of Rise of Civilizations have announced that new commanders are coming. So we're going to cover that as soon as it happens. We are, in fact, sponsored by those creators of Rise of Civilizations, and let's get into the action here. When we do a commander guide, four things that we always talk about. We review the skills in depth, and they're good to know, especially if you aren't using the commander, because you're going to want to know what the commander does when you face them on the battlefield. Next up, we're going to talk about what talents a player might be using if they bring that commander to the battlefield and how you can get the most value with those talents. We'll then get a look at how you can actually unlock this commander and skill them up. And lastly, we'll talk about the pairings, which is really interesting with this commander. So let's get a look at these skills. And these skills tell us a lot about the direction you should take this commander. First skill is Military Life. This reduces the damage taken by 25% and increases your counterattack damage by 25%. It's an active skill, and the duration of those benefits is for 5 seconds. This tells us that you're making a tanky commander who can take a lot of damage and do well against many enemies at the same time. The next skill makes it so that when Scipio is attacked, he has a 10% chance to increase his troops' attack by 40%, the way I have him currently skilled, at a max of 100% for the next second, and that can only trigger once every 5 seconds. Yet again, a situation where he's really, really good if you're up against a lot of players. In addition, this skill gives you a 10% chance to heal a portion of your slightly wounded units, a healing factor max of 450, when the army is less than 40% of the units remaining. The next skill, Conqueror of Africa, increases your damage by an upwards of 7% when you're attacking other players' cities, which is excellent. And the final skill increases your troop capacity by 10%. Now, this commander is really good in open field combat because you can have more troops than everybody else, and they're also really good in that capacity because they benefit when they get hit by lots of people. So they're very tanky, and they can handle a big melee. They're also really good against other players and hitting player cities, and that's really their specialty. The expertise skill, which requires you to have all the other skills maxed, increases the effectiveness of your second skill, making it so that when you're attacked, there's a 15% chance to increase your troops' attack by 100% for the next 2 seconds, which is a big deal. It's doubling the amount of time that that skill lasts, which is really good, and also makes it so that they have a 15% chance to heal a portion of the slightly wounded units, and it ups the healing factor by 50 to a total of 500 when that army has less than 40% of units remaining. They're actually better than I thought for open field combat, which is pretty exciting. Now, the talents really lend themselves to making this commander very good in that context. There's 3 trees that we can play with: the Conquering tree, the Leadership tree, and the Attack tree. Each of them has their situations where they would be good. Let's start with the Conquering tree, since that's where I've put my talent points. I've personally got this commander set up to attack other player cities. It's not something I'm very excited about doing, but if I need to, I'm going to have a commander that is set up to go and do that. Now, when you have a talent tree that has a narrow focus, as this one does, it is focused on sort of one thing only, which is attacking player cities. You get more bang for your buck with every one of those talent points. So there's less applicability, there's less general utility, but for the one thing it does, they do it very well. So the things that this tree is very good at in the top half, it deals with the enemy watchtower, which is a very powerful unit. It also reduces the damage that you take from garrisons when you're attacking player cities, which is excellent. I'll have a card in the top about the watchtower and city defense and why that stuff's really powerful. The bottom half of the tree is reducing the damage you take and increasing the damage that you deal. The top talent in this tree is really, really strong. The Tear of Blessing reduces the amount of deaths that you have by 10%. Hello, yes please. Sign me up for that. That is really excellent. Now, there's a couple talents off to the side that are worth talking about. One is well provisioned, which honestly I'm not all that excited about. It increases your troop load, which, I mean, I guess if you're hitting other player cities and trying to carry resources, that's good. I guess that's only good, though, if you're bringing them a very long distance. Otherwise, you just hit them a bunch of times. And yeah, I'm not all that excited about this particular talent. The next one is Thoroughbreds, and I think Thoroughbreds is pretty interesting. It increases your march speed with a rally, and that could be very, very strong if you're using him to rally other player cities. That's currently not my intention. So for now, I'm headed up in the direction of getting fresh recruits, which increases the number of troops that I can bring. And I probably will move toward armored to the teeth and armed to the teeth, as well as picking up some additional rage generation from Hidden Wrath or potentially Burning Blood. Now, I've already sort of talked about a little bit, spoiler alert, some of these talents that are in the other trees. Let's talk about how you might build out Scipio if you're interested in open field combat. If the thing you want to do is be in open field combat, there's two directions you could go. One is a heavy focus in the attack tree. Another is a heavy focus in the leadership tree. I tend to lean toward the leadership tree and having a mixed army. That also makes you less vulnerable to players that have a specific type of troop. Makes you very well-rounded, and you get some pretty good benefits from that in this tree. The right half of the tree is where I would focus first. The talents here make it so you increase healing effects, which, by the way, is an indicator that you should probably pair with a commander that does healing. It also increases your rage restoration. Every time you are attacked, you generate rage, which is very, very good for a big open field combat. And strategic prowess makes it so that every time you use a skill, you take less damage. I like everything that's happening on the right-hand side of the tree. And by the way, this is where the increase to march speed lives. So if you're interested in open field combat, those are some of the very first talents you should be getting. The left-hand side of the tree is really a lot less exciting to me, making it so that you increase your normal attack damage, and also makes it so that after you've been reduced to less than 50% strength, you increase your attack damage. And those are fine, but just not terribly exciting to me. The top of the tree, Name of the King, is a talent that I find fascinating. It makes it so that you increase your rally damage. Now let's talk about that for a second. If you're rallying a player city, I really think you should be using the Conquering tree. So you could be using leadership talents and supplement with conquering talents. I suppose that's reasonable. In that case, Name of the King's very good. I certainly wouldn't be using Scipio to rally barbarian forts because, like, that's what your peacekeepers are for. Commanders that have peacekeeping talents should be doing that. So, I don't know. I guess if you're using him as a rally leader and you're supplementing with the conquering tree, that would be worth picking up. If you're really just interested in open field combat, you could leave this one off. I wouldn't get it. The attack tree has some interesting utility, and we should talk about some of the points that you could pick up within it. One talent that I really love, and I will probably pick up myself, even for attacking player cities, is Burning Blood, which makes it so you get additional rage every single time the troops are attacked. That is really strong. I'm all about rage generation and getting those active skills going. After you've starred up your commander a whole heck of a lot, Lord of War is really good. It increases the attack by a max of 1.5% times the commander's star level. Hello. You get them up to 6 stars or even 5 stars, and you're really cooking with gas with this one. Next up is Effortless, and I think Effortless is a really interesting talent to be talking about if you think you're going to be in battle for a prolonged period of time. And this is very relevant if you're building a super tanky pairing of commanders. It makes it so that you increase your damage by 1.5% every 10 seconds and upwards of 10%. That seems really good to me. I think this is something I would consider if you are a very strong player compared to the other players on the battlefield. If you're the alpha, getting that talent could be really, really good because you are going to be on the battlefield longer than everybody else, and that would be very strong. The talents on the bottom half of the tree make you a little more tanky with Armored Joints and Unyielding. Unyielding increases your counterattack damage, so I guess I don't really mean tanky. I mean, if you think you're going to be attacked by many enemies, it's very good. And also increasing your damage done, or sorry, reducing the damage taken is really good in a situation when you think you will be hit by many other players. So once again, this tree is telling me that if you're the stronger player in a conflict, this tree is really good for you. Up next is Victory Charge, which when armies led by this commander defeat an army, and that doesn't include garrisons, the attack is increased by some percentage for the next 10 seconds. Again, unless you're the alpha player defeating many players, I don't think this is all that exciting. The final talent that I also struggle with a little bit is Last Stand. It makes it so your normal attacks have a chance to cause this commander to go on a rampage, increasing the damage they deal for the next 3 seconds, but they can't use their skills during that time. So when do I think this is good? I think this is good if you don't have a epic or legendary pairing with this commander. And I think this is good if you essentially in the times when this triggers right after you've used your skill, and maybe if you still are accumulating rage during that time, like maybe you wouldn't have used a skill in those 3 seconds anyways. In that case, I guess it's good. Overall, I would probably lead you heavily into this tree if you think you're more of an alpha for these top-end talents. Otherwise, I would probably stick with the leadership tree and maybe supplement with some of the ones that are showing up here at the front of this attack tree. Now, it's worth mentioning, Fight to the Death increases your damage dealt, but also damage taken. This is not good if you think you're going to be attacked by many armies. At least I don't think it's all that exciting. And Martial Mastery increases your normal attack damage, but increases active skill damage. I actually think this is kind of interesting if you pair with 2 commanders that are not doing active skill damage, such as a Joan of Arc pairing. Whew. Okay, we talked a lot about the different talents that you could pick up, and they are actually, every time I look at it, kind of more and more exciting. And I almost convince myself more and more that maybe I should be using this commander in open field combat. With that said, if you are going to pair this commander with other commanders for both open field combat and in attacking other player cities, who should it be? I want to start with the idea that you're going to be attacking other players' cities, because that really is CPO's specialty. And I want to look at the legendary tier first, because that's actually where all the other commanders are that are specialized in attacking other player cities, which is kind of fascinating. To me, I think that means that we may see an epic commander or a blue commander in the future that is geared toward attacking player cities, because CPO is the only one at the epic tier currently. So with the legendary tier, who might you pair with? You could consider using Richard I as a secondary commander. I mention that because he doesn't really have the right talents for attacking other player cities, but the skill Battle Hardened makes it so that you reduce damage taken from the Watchtower, which is pretty good if you're attacking other player cities. A commander that I think would be probably better for attacking other player cities would be Julius Caesar. His 3rd skill is oriented toward that. I probably would use him as the secondary as well, because you can level up a epic commander easier than you can level up a legendary. Frederick I is also very well suited toward attacking other player cities, and Frederick also has a healing skill. So if you're using the talents that amplify healing from CPO, this pairing would be pretty strong. For similar reasons, I like Hannibal Barca, who offers healing when you're attacking other governors' garrisons. I also really like Charles Martel, who, if you're going with a build that's literally not focused on damage at all and wants to try to mitigate damage, the shield from Charles Martel is excellent. You could run full infantry instead of going for a diversity of units, and the counterattack damage is all on plan. I actually think this pairing is better than meets the eye. At the epic tier, if you're and at this point, we're moving sort of out of the realm of attacking other players' cities and more into the realm of open field combat, because really none of the epic commanders are particularly suited, besides CPO, for attacking player cities. There are some general good pairings, and that includes Joan of Arc, because you probably are bringing a mixed army, in which case you get a ton of benefit from her first skill, and because she's got healing. And also with Boudica, who also has healing, uh, she does have a skill attack that is doing damage. So maybe less of an exceptional pairing, but also really quite strong, in part because she doesn't specialize in bringing a specific type of troop. So if you're bringing a mixed army for open field combat, which is generally a good strategy for open field combat, so you're not weak to any one type of unit, Boudica and Joan of Arc are really good pairings. Now you could also pair with Kusunoki, who is an AoE commander, but I'll mention that he's focused on archers, and unless you're planning to bring all archers, you'll only get some of the benefit of this particular skill and his expertise skill. I would not recommend Sun Tzu as a pairing. He's a garrison commander, but he's also increasing skill damage, and that's not something that CPO is doing, so this fourth skill is really kind of wasted. I think Pelagius is actually kind of a fascinating pairing because he's got healing on his fourth skill, but he's a garrison commander, so that's not relevant, and you would have to bring a full cavalry unit to get the full benefit of using this commander. I think Hermann is interesting in some ways because he's offering you march speed when you're bringing archers, but you got to bring archers. And are archers the unit I would bring to open field combat? No, most people are using cavalry. They're countered by, or the archers are countered by cavalry, so not a strong choice in my opinion. Lastly, there's Ulgi Mundak, who I think is kind of interesting in some ways. Whenever attacked, Ulgi Mundak has a 10% chance to increase the troop damage by 100%. I don't know if this is multiplicative or additive or how this actually stacks with CPO. It could be kind of interesting if you want to bring all infantry, and I don't know, that's a thing you could do. I think he's kind of an interesting pairing, honestly. Not my first choice, but not my last choice either. Hooey. My friends, we've covered a lot of ground on this commander. I think he's really exciting. I'm probably going to do more with him. I've kind of talked myself into it for open field combat. If you found this guide helpful, please do like and subscribe. Leave some comments if you got some advice that I missed or things that you would recommend for this commander. And until next time, my friends, you have fun smashing the kingdom.